Welcome to the Perfect Pairing Podcast. The cigar of the week this week is the Aladino Classic Robusto.
But before we get to that, if you guys don't know us already, my name is Chris, and I am the whiskey expert, but the cigar noob.
And I'm Adam, and I'm the cigar expert, but the whiskey noob.
And as Adam said, today we are finding the perfect pairing for this Aladino Classic. We've got 3 different pairings that are going to go with it, covering not as broad of a spectrum this week. So hopefully we get something to hit. But there's something special about our pairings this week, basically. A reason that I picked them, I should say. Do you know why? Do you understand? Do you get the reason? At least for the first 2. The third one's different.
Well, I get the first 2. Yeah, I think I
Okay.
get the first 2. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I understand. I mean, they're both similar in a way, but different.
Yes, exactly.
Same, but different.
Exactly. So I guess just to put it all out there, so we've got Virginia Distillery Company's American Single Malt finished in Cabernet casks, followed by Westward Whiskey's American Single Malt finished in Pinot Noir casks. And I thought it'd be fun because those are 2 very similar base products, American Single Malt, finished in somewhat similar barrels. But you know wine better than I do, probably. I don't know how similar a Cabernet is to a Pinot, but I'm pretty sure they're both red, at least.
They're both red at least, but they are on the opposite spectrum of red.
Okay, because Pinot's sweet, right?
Yeah, Pinot's the introductory red.
Okay. So it's the closest I could get. I thought port is so kind of off in its own island, I feel like, 'cause it's like desserty.
Port actually might be too similar to Cabernet almost.
Oh, okay.
Like if we would have had the port cask, it probably, I don't know. I don't know.
Mm.
You know, I like the diversity. That's what I'll say.
Right.
And then
Right.
number 3 is, we got the hammer coming. So
Yes, absolutely. Number 3 is going to be a curveball because it's not explicitly a cigar blend, but the label reads a lot like a cigar blend. So I'm curious if it's going to act like one or not. We're going to see. It's also got a lot of kick to it. So I don't know if it's going to just steamroll the cigar or not. I hope not. And if it does, we're going to give it something else to pair with. That's why I wish, obviously we can't, but I just so wish we could do like 10 pairings because like I would love to put 3 super similar whiskeys for like an experiment, but I also don't want all 3 to just completely miss. You know, like I like to try to cover a spectrum.
I agree with that. I really wish, before when I did the test run of the Perfect Pairing podcast and I was launching it, you were on there.
Yeah.
We did it together last year about this time, somewhere around, I think it was November.
Mm-hmm.
I started dabbling with it and stuff, and I was like, well, we'll see. And I think we did 5 or 4, but
5,
one was always
I think.
non-alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a bunch of wide spectrums. I don't know. It was tough. Like I think it was 4, but there was a lot of ranges that sometimes that just makes it like okay, like But I was a rookie at that point in this, trying to figure out what this could look like. So,
Right.
but let's get to this cigar. So this cigar, I want to mention the entire blend. It is a Habano wrapper. It is a Honduran Corojo binder, and Habano and Corojo fillers. So we have the cousins. This is a good old Alabama reunion right here. The cousins are getting married and they're having a great time.
Okay. I was like,
No.
Alabama? How does that have to do with that? You got me.
No, the tobacco is not out of Alabama. Sorry for
Mhm.
anybody out of Alabama. I actually like Alabama, but
Yeah, you're right
um,
next door. You got to be careful.
I know you guys are gonna come over to Atlanta and kill me. But well, you and your cousin are going to anyway.
You had to.
I did. I had to. Too easy. So we've got, as we've said before, if you're new to cigars, Habano and Corojo, I do consider them like cousins. In the tobacco is similar but different. Like there's a lot of similarities in there. You can, depending on how they're fermented, how they're processed, there can be so many different flavor profiles involved. But there's usually a little bit of spice involved in there that gives it that very distinct flavor, and it has traditionally a very medium-bodied power to it, and I think this one is definitely medium-bodied, but it's got not your traditional kick. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, no, it's thrown me for a loop. It's like not super dark or earthy, but it still has some spice to it, some like black pepper, some salt. Uh there's one note that I can't shake, so we're dipping into the Chris notes on this one. I can't help it. It tastes like salted pretzels. This tastes like pretzels to me, like 100%.
Hmm.
Like I can't unsee it.
Okay. I can see it a little bit. Not a really salty pretzel though. I'm not getting much
No,
salt. I'm getting the
very
pretzel.
pretzely. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
I could
yeah.
see it. I could see it. But I think it's going to be really interesting with this lineup, especially with some finishes because it's like where is this going to land with a finish because it's similar to the way that Ferio Tego Generoso was. It's very cigar-y cigar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's there's not a lot of like oh that is like a really strong flavor of something like it's the
Mm-hmm.
tobacco. I told Chris off camera. I said when I smoked this, I recognized the habano right away as a
Mm-hmm.
guy who smoked just a purito or a fuma of uh, habano, like just the single rolled up tobacco of habano. Like that's what this tastes like. So it's tobacco-y tobacco right here. So
Right.
I'm intrigued. Let's dive into the first pairing.
Yeah, hopefully that's a clean slate for these finishes to really bind to, because as we mentioned, two of them are really similar, so that worries me. Starting off with the first of the similar one, we have Virginia Distillery Company's American Single Malt. This is their Cabernet cask. So you take an American single malt, you finish it in casks that once held Cabernet wine. It has American single malt's going to have those nice bready flavors. It's going to have that maltiness, that sweet, rich flavor to it. And then you're adding in some of those dark fruits. I can't remember if it was this one or their port cask, but one of them has a very plummy type flavor to it. So it's going to have that like deep, fruity. We've said before, Fig Newton for cigars. It's going to have that Fig Newton-esque quality to it. And it's also only 93 proof, so it's not going to hit too hard. And I put it side by side with Westward because Virginia Distillery Company for me usually has that deep, bready, kind of rich flavor, whereas then Westward has very similar flavors through a very different filter where they're more of a pop. So it's two different palate preferences, I would say. Some people will gravitate heavily towards the Virginia Distillery Company. Some people will gravitate heavily towards the Westward whiskey. That's why I wanted to put them side by side to really pick out some of the differences with a cigar.
Yeah. There's something that you're gonna find out probably here in a second while I keep talking, but I'm gonna go back to the beginning because I don't want to give anything away.
Okay.
Going back to the Virginia Distilling Company American Single Malt Cabernet Cask, in my opinion, as a again I brought this up on some previous episodes, not a big American Single Malt drinker. This is a very introductory American Single Malt. In my
Mm-hmm.
like, it definitely has like little to no kick, but the American single malt flavors, and then you get that kind of uh, that Cabernet finish. I don't think it's a really strong fruity finish. It was definitely plum was the port finish, by the way. I do
Okay.
remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, I'm not getting it here, so that kind of confirmed it for me. It's it's definitely you could tell it's finished, but it's almost for me as a whiskey noob, it's almost like more of oh, this is a really light American single malt rather than man, this American single malt like you can really get the finish out of it. It's almost like that for me.
Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. It I immediately when I took a sip, I was like, this is not the plum one. It reminds me more of like an apple. It's like
Hmm.
you said, it's almost just like sweeter, kind of, which really makes it nice for somebody who just wants something a little bit sweeter and more approachable. The thing I love, what we can't get into because we don't have enough time. I back when I did the Whiskey Noobs podcast, like I could do a whole podcast reviewing these American single malts, both of the ones that we're trying today, because they're so complex. So like they are introductory in how approachable they are. They also have a lot going on, which is really cool. Now I notice when I go from the Virginia Distillery Company with the Cabernet finish over to the Aladino Classic, right away it's deeper. It's deepened it a little bit. To me, maybe this is what you're thinking I'm going to say. It's more Corojo-y. That's what I think.
I wasn't gonna get that. I
No?
think I think the wine finish is coming out in the cigar more
Mm.
than it is even in the Cabernet cask. Um, I was I was a little shocked at how, like, obviously I've had some of this, but I haven't. This is the first bottle I've had of this, and I haven't had a ton of it. Um, so I haven't been super acclimated to this whiskey yet. But I was expecting more from a Cabernet cask, closer
Mm-hmm.
to the port cask.
Mm-hmm.
I think in my head, because cabs can be, very bold and very, dark and rich. So I was expecting a little bit more of that out of the Virginia Distilling Company Cabernet cask. But when I go from that American single malt right there over to the Aladino Classic, it's almost like I'm pairing it with a wine that has like a barrely finish. And
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's where the spice of the Corojo makes that barely finish, and the Habano definitely, I think Habano, in my opinion, and this is probably like if you're a cigar nerd, you're gonna just debunk this in like 3 seconds. But from my experience, it's a little less spicy than Corojo, um, in general. But I mean, like that blew my mind. Like you were talking, and I think I missed like 2 minutes because right when I took a puff, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. How did, like, I did not see that finish coming over at all, especially when the finish felt so mild and tamed in the American single malt by itself.
Yeah, I do agree that it's more noticeable once you go over to the cigar because it is a very light finish on the whiskey. And I think maybe that's a result. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of the pairing already because I remember tasting the Cabernet a bit more. It's definitely not as prominent as the port cask finish that we've had previously. But I think with the cigar, the maltiness comes out a bit more, so you don't notice it as much. I do think the cigar, I agree with you that some of those finished notes are coming through the barrely flavor. I do think it's leaning more towards Corojo for me now. Corojos a lot of times remind me a little bit of like a chocolate cookie, like an Oreo or something. And it's giving me a little bit more of those deep flavors like that. And I think that could be what you're calling like the barrely flavor a little bit. I think it's that more, I don't want to say earthy, but like darker, rich flavor coming out of the cigar instead of like the lighter, peppery flavors. Which I
Yeah, I
think,
can see that.
yeah, and maybe that's the malt. I don't know. Something in that. Well, I guess we'll see because we're doing another malt, luckily. So we'll be able to
Yeah,
figure that out.
I think it'll be
Um,
very interesting to see how that works now. Now I'm very excited. I was a little worried, but you nailed it. So good job with picking the pairings today, Chris.
Thank
Um,
you. Thank you.
So I want to make sure I mention this though, because when I go from the Aladino Classic back to the Virginia Distilling Company's um, American Single Malt Cabernet Cask finish, you talk about cigar names being long.
I knew you were
Golly.
gonna. I knew it. I knew it.
Virginia Distilling Company American Single Malt Cabernet Cask finish.
There you go.
That's 14.
I
No,
mean, but
nine, nine,
I'd
whatever.
probably like in shorthand, you'd call it the Virginia Distillery Company Cab, like the Cab or the Cabernet Cask. But
That's
we're
still
saying the
five.
full name. The full name is tech. It's like the Esteban Julio Ricardo Montoya de Rosa Ramirez. Like it is. The full
That
name
was
is
pretty
long.
good. That was pretty good.
Thank you.
Um, anyways, going over to this American single malt Cabernet cask from Virginia Distilling Company, the wine is there now, in my opinion. Like the Cabernet really pops
Hmm.
out, and I have no idea. It's it's not clearly ultra because the Virginia Distilling Company American single malt Cabernet cask finish is a Cabernet cask finish. So there's no it's supposed to have a wine flavor that's involved. But it's almost so prevalent now that I feel like it's nearly an ultra pairing that I'm
Hmm.
getting this dark Cabernet finish um, out of way more when I go from the Aladino Classic over to that American single malt.
I'll disagree just a touch. So I do agree something is getting significantly more prominent. For me, it's almost more savory. Like I don't, and maybe this is because I'm not a wine drinker. I don't know. It's like
Could be.
not quite as winey as I'd expect, but it's very well. I also don't drink Cabernets often. I've had them before and I actually enjoyed them, but I don't drink wine super often. So maybe it is Cabernet and I don't know it. Um, One thing that I've noticed, and it's a little bit more subtle here, but it's enough of a pattern that I've got to say it. When we go from cigar to American single malt, I always get a little touch of a chocolate, like a little touch of Yoo-hoo, like a
Mm-hmm.
tiny bit. And I think
Yeah.
it's the barley getting a chocolatey flavor when you pair it with a cigar, especially I think Habanos a lot lately, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's Habanos Corojos in that family.
Yeah. Yeah. Down in Alabama.
Yeah, something like that.
No. I agree. I think we may be discovering a potential universal truth here,
Mm-hmm.
that we can say. We don't find them very often in the pairing world. And typically, when you think you found one, it gets completely obliterated by another pairing that you have when you
Mm-hmm.
think you figure it out, which is the fun. It's the joy of pairings, is trying to figure it out. But I agree there. I think it's really, really interesting. I think I'm ready to give it a rating because I'm super excited to go into pairing number two.
Yeah, I'm super excited to jump into it as well. So let's jump into our ratings. I'm gonna let you go first because I don't. I think I'm gonna land. I wrote mine down. I'm not cheating, but
Okay, I was
I'll
like,
let you
you're
go
about
first.
to. I'm going right at an 8 flat because
Okay.
I like it. I would recommend it. I'm not jumping out of my shoes. It's almost too light for me. I think maybe it's part
Mm-hmm.
of my palate right now. I am on like I was kind of on a medium body kick. Now I've for whatever reason like heavy Maduros. I'm like loving right now. It just kind of
Ooh.
everything switches. Um, Maybe that's why the proof is not getting to me as much in some of the higher proofs that we've had in the past couple weeks. But um, yeah, I think that's probably why it lands at an 8. But would recommend it overall.
I am back to being the slightly harsher one. I went with a 7 flat. And I think the main reason is Virginia Distillery Company. I know how complex a lot of their stuff is, and I feel like it lost some of that complexity. And maybe that's the cab being super forward, like you mentioned. For me, it was like more savory. It was like something very savory. And I felt like usually with Virginia Distillery Company, I can get some chocolate, some cocoa, some malt, some spice. This like brought out the finish a bit more than I would have liked. So for me, it went down to a 7, but still good. Seven's still good. Like I'm not upset by it at all, and I like what it did to the cigar, but just not quite high enough for me to be like, yeah, I'm not worried about looking at other stuff.
I could see that. I could see that 100%.
I'm
100%.
so excited to jump into pairing two though. So pairing number two is Westward Whiskey's Pinot Noir Cask. And so, once again, this is an American single malt that is now finished in a Pinot Noir cask instead of a Cabernet cask. The last one was Cab. This one, you mentioned how Virginia Distillery Companies was like a very light finish. Like you might not even know that it's there if you didn't know. Westward's Pinot Noir finish is the opposite of that. It's more towards VDC's port cask that we had on, where you can tell.
Yeah.
Fun fact about it, I actually blinded it. The first time I ever had this was in a Blind Barrels subscription box. Shout out to them. We have no affiliation, but hey, shout out. And I tried it in a subscription box and I said, this is definitely malty. I think this is an American single malt. And I said, it's really fruity. I think it's a wine finish. I don't know, like maybe Pinot. Like I just threw it out there and I nailed it. It was like the most exciting blind tasting I've ever had in my life. I was like, well, I'm officially, I made it. I made it. I'm a professional now. And then proceeded
Yeah.
to completely annihilate the last guess. But, but the point being, it's there and you see it. And so I really want to see what happens since we had kind of the opposite on the first tasting.
It is definitely that Westward whiskey flavor, though. We talked about it in the last episode, and it has that stamp of Westward whiskey that that you can taste. So I could see that, and it is 100% stronger on the finish than the VDC American Single Malt Cabernet finish. Like that was, it's not even close in my opinion, and it's only like six. What do you say? 6 proof heavier,
Mm-hmm.
96.
No, it's
Um,
actually lower. They're
it's
93 and this is 90.
oh oh
Yeah.
wow. I feel like it feels a little bit more elevated to me. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel like 100 or anything close to that, but it just feels like a little bit more elevated. I think it's that Westward whiskey, kind of that whiskey E that we that we keep talking
Yes.
about
That's
in that
exactly what it is.
Westward, yeah, stamp. Um, but it's delicious, man. That one, I think if you are a big wine lover and you're looking to get into whiskey, I think that's a great introductory especially to American single malt specifically. You probably already like bourbon a little bit because it's got the sweetness in it. But if you're looking to get into American single malt a little heavier, I think this is a great introductory. Both of these really great introductories to American single malts. Like this could be American single malt 101 course right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. And jumping from the Westward Pinot Noir cask over to the Aladino Classic, wow, is something happening to this cigar. So I think the finish comes over a lot. Weirdly enough, on the first puff, I didn't think it did much at all. And then on the second, like I went back, I really got some of that Westward on my palate, really acclimated, jumped back to the cigar. Now it is the cigar is back to being more chocolatey, more corojo-y, like I said it was with the last one, but more so with that fruit and with that savory flavor. It's got berries, it's got red fruit to it, and it's got cocoa and something else that I can't really put my finger on yet, but for sure it a lot of that is translating over to the cigar. Can't wait to see if it makes the American single malt taste like chocolate, because we just made the claim that it will, so we'll see.
That's very true. Here's this is not really a Chris term, but I guess you could call it that. I think it makes the cigar taste like Westward made the cigar.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good way
that
to put it.
like if you're out there and you like Westward and you've had a bunch of it at least and you know that Westward stamp we're talking about, that flavor profile that's so specific, it's in that cigar like Westward literally made this cigar. Like that
Mm-hmm.
flavor hops over there with the finish. It's like it's almost like this cigar morphed into the whiskey. It's this exact whiskey in cigar form.
Yeah. No,
Like
that's a.
that's what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that makes it too susceptible to change. I don't know if that means that it is getting steamrolled, but it doesn't feel that way. It does
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's accepting it rather than getting steamrolled. Would you agree?
Absolutely, I agree with you. Yeah, and maybe it's because I don't smoke as many cigars, because I feel like the cigar character is still coming through, but it's like Westward made the cigar. That was a beautiful way to put. That was a very crisp statement of you, and I appreciate it because I think it was very. Yeah, it's like Westward made the cigar. And the beauty of it, so then my mind goes to, am I going to get burnt out on this pairing? But when I go from the Aladino back to the Westward, now the Westward has changed. First of all, so far we're batting 1,000. This tastes like Tootsie Rolls. That we're right back to the Yoo-Hoo chocolate Tootsie Roll flavor of American single malt with a cigar. And that comes out. The finish is not as prevalent for me. It's still there,
Yeah.
but it's not as prevalent. And I think maybe I'm interested to see your thoughts. It takes away some of that Westward kick. I think it's a little bit sweeter and easier to drink.
I think it is. It gives you that natural westward flavor without the
Mm-hmm.
kick. Yeah,
Yeah.
like the it's really it brings the whiskey to its roots, root flavors without the kick. And you're 100% right. Chocolate's right there. Um, I'm not gonna go say Tootsie Roll or Yoo-Hoo because I'm not willing to go that far yet. Um, but it's it's there and it's working. It's working better than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
It's again just for me. I'm like I I I can't really conceptualize in my head, and I know we're talking about the whiskey here and what the Aladino Classic is doing to this Westward Pinot Noir finish, but I can't get over the cigar in my head. I'm like I don't know if I'm appreciating that dramatic of a change. I'm like
Mm-hmm.
because I love the Aladino Classic. I think they called it the Aladino Classic because the Aroa family, Justo Aroa, is the owner of Aladino. The Aroa family are like the kings of Corojo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're known as. That Christian Aroa, his brother, we had it. I think we actually had the no, yeah, it was a CLE Corojo that we had on,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
like they are known as like the Corojo kings, and I wasn't getting enough of that in this pairing. So I'm like, like I don't know how I feel about it. It's delicious and it tastes great, but it's almost like I did lose some of that cigar flavor. And like you said, maybe it's because I smoke a lot of cigars and I can tell very big nuances in it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I really I wanted to voice that because even though I'm gonna give whatever rating I give, I don't have it yet. I still am like I wanted to make sure that I voiced that so people out there, if they like this cigar, they can be like, okay, that's interesting. Like maybe I'll try it, maybe I won't. Like and just I'll leave it up to your guys' judgment on that.
That's fair. It's almost like the pairing is going too far. Like if you want the cigar to taste exactly like the cigar tastes or close to it. Like
Right.
I don't know that it's necessarily wiping out all the cigar notes. I think it's wiping out the Aladino Classic. Like it tastes like a
Yeah.
different cigar now.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind
It
of the problem.
what it's actually reminding me of, and so like this is for me to reveal my cards a little bit. This is going to be a bonus point. It reminds me of one of the really dark cigars. I forget what it was that we paired with the Woodford Reserve Masters Select, where all those finishes got super prominent and it was like chocolatey at the same time. That's what this reminds me
Was
of.
that the
It
night
is like a.
shift
It might have been. It might have been. Yep. Oh, so you already know where
from
my mind is
Warfighter?
at.
Yeah,
If
you
it
loved
if
it.
it
Yeah, yeah. I'm
if
on.
it tastes
Yeah,
like
I'm
the
on to
night
you
shift.
now. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So I think I'm ready. I think I got my rating. Are you good?
Yes. Yes, I do have mine. I'm changing what I had originally wrote, but I have it in my head.
Okay. So I'm giving some credit to the pairing itself for pairing's sake, and I'm going an 8.2
Okay. Yeah, I'm not far
because I
from you.
did enjoy it better than the last one. I just still don't know how I feel about the cigar and how it changed, but it's a delicious
Hmm.
pairing, and I would do it again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I gave it an 8.6 because I love the Warfighter Night Shift and I loved it with that Woodford Master Select. Um, but I actually kept it below a 9 because it kind of wipes out also it turns it into this really nice delicious cigar, but it wipes out some of the good qualities of the cigar that you like. If you're
Yeah,
smoking the cigar, you want to taste that.
yeah,
So I think that's fair.
yeah,
It's almost like antagonistic and complementary at the same time because it's like it brings all these amazing notes to the cigar, but it also antagonistically takes away some of the good notes of the cigar in a weird way.
yeah. Really, really, yeah. Very strange. But number three is going to be a curveball. So let's see.
Number 3, we're going a totally different direction. So we've got Hard Truth's Sweet Mash Rye. This is their 2024 Barrel Reserve. So I'm going to read this once, and that's all you're getting from me. It is a sweet mash rye whiskey finished in cognac, sauternes, PX sherry, and PX brandy casks with a touch of toasted French oak. So a lot going on. Oh, and it's what 116.8 proof. So
I
we're
thought you were going
taking
to
it.
say it was barreled in Alabama or something.
No, this
Just
you got the whole family. This is a lot of finishing, which is why it kind of reads like it was a cigar blend because it's got so much different things going on.
mm-hmm. And this is my second time trying it. Um, that 116, right? You said 116.
Yeah,
Um,
115 point like
it's
8 or something.
okay.
No,
It's
116 point. Yeah, sorry, I keep interrupting you.
yeah.
Go ahead.
You're good. So that is definitely there. I gotta say that my palate must be adjusting, or it's just the winter's coming, so my palate's getting ready for heavier uh, notes, and that's why I'm in Maduro kick, and that's why I'm able to notice the flavor profiles in these pairings. Because in the beginning of this podcast, forever ago, I'm the whiskey noob. Like I would get overwhelmed, my palate would, with the proof, and it's not doing that as much, but it's still there. The zing
Mm-hmm.
is prevalent right
Mm-hmm.
away, but then your palate does go on a little exploratory whirlwind of different flavors. I can't pinpoint what it tastes like because I think it does evolve as it's sitting on your palate and as the finish of your palate and after like the aftertaste, it all really does evolve.
Mm-hmm. No, you're spot on. My review of this should be out by the time this podcast comes out, and that's why I picked to review this one because I really enjoyed it. It it's not like you can pick out any one of the finishes and be like, "Oh, that's the flavor that I'm getting." They did a good job of making it its own thing with all these different finishes. So, you get some of that cognac and some of that sherry and all
Hmm.
these different things, but they don't. It's not like, oh, that's a cognac finish, in my opinion. Like, I don't see it that way. And then you also have it backed up by their sweet mash rye, which I obviously love because I did a barrel pick of it. So I love their sweet mash rye. It's backed up by that flavor, which has all these like spicy notes. It has some of these fruity notes. Super complex whiskey as it is. Do all that finishing to it. Now it's totally different. Now I will say, when I went from the Hard Truth over to the Aladino, totally like wild flavor. Like at first it was like, this tastes like the Aladino. And then as it like when I retrohaled, I'm like, what does that taste like? I have no idea. I still don't know what notes I'm even thinking.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it's got depth now. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of back to when we had it before any other pairings. You know, I think maybe the finishes on the other ones threw us off a little bit with that wine. So I think this one is like I believe that any pairing that I would do with the Aladino Classic, I would go more on this realm. If you're
Mm-hmm.
someone that looks for a little bit of oomph and you were hoping for something like that, because I was, and this is working. We were worried that the Aladino Classic would be steamrolled. It is not. It is standing
Mm-hmm.
up to it. I think it's definitely complimentary, at least on the cigar so far. This may be positively antagonistic in the sense that the cigar is getting elevated, but the whiskey's just not changing. Um, so I'm intrigued to go back.
Which it's so weird because you would have thought this was the whiskey that would trample the cigar, but
Hmm.
it doesn't. You get the cigar and it sticks around. It's like, I don't know if you really say finish with a cigar, but it's like the finish of the cigar, like as you're exhaling, as the retrohale's leaving your nose, there's a weird, distinct, different flavor. And I don't know what it is.
But
I
it's
truly,
delicious.
yeah, it's delicious. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yep.
Almost
Agreed.
candy-ish, maybe. Like but
But it's
not.
darker than that.
Yeah.
I honestly think it has a Maduro sweetness.
Mm-hmm.
Is where I'd probably start going in my head. Um, Almost like a really oily Maduro, but it smokes way lighter than that. But it's bold and robust, like a really oily Maduro would be,
Yeah.
um, without all the Lajero in the middle. That's gonna slam some power on you. But when I
Mm-hmm.
go from the Aladino Classic back to the Hard Truth, the I really think that cognac finish is coming out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what's kind of becoming more prevalent, and it's becoming more approachable again. I I, I almost got to do like a audit on myself and be like, all of your pairings are going to change here if your palate is now adjusting to this proof. If I'm finally like, which would make sense after 8 months of 7 months of doing this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
it would make sense that it would now be like, yeah, I got this now. Okay,
Right.
like my palate's like, yeah, dude, we're pros now. We're not whiskey noobs. Stop saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, but I'm really enjoying this. This is what I want with the Aladino Classic. This is the pairing that I was hoping we were gonna have today.
Yep. No, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad you said that about the cognac because I don't know if I've ever drank just cognac. And I was thinking, I'm like, I think that tastes like cognac, but I don't know enough to say that it does. So I think it's definitely there. But what I love about it is it still didn't lose complexity. The rye complexity is still there in the Hard Truth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like both of these retained their identities and elevated weird things that you didn't notice at first, which is kind of exactly what you want from a pairing. So I think it's a beautiful pairing, and I think it shows the good notes from each of them, from the Hard Truth and from the Aladino, while elevating things you didn't notice as much before. So overall, I think they go together really nicely.
I would agree 100%. Are you ready to rate it?
I am. I made you go first, so I'll jump in and I'll go first.
Fair
I
enough.
put this one at a 9.0 because I thought I'd never be like, I need to try for something else, but I do want to leave between 9 and 10 because I'm like, oh, maybe there's something else, but I personally don't feel the need to try other things.
I like that. I went 8.8 because again, this is what I was looking for with the Aladino Classic, but I almost think there's something that's going to bring the beauty of the tobacco of the Habano and the Corojo out more. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think we found something that makes the cigar its best self.
Okay.
For a weird way to put that, I guess, but like
Yeah.
that's what I think overall. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and throw this out there. Fourth
Mm-hmm.
pairing, Cabernet. I want I want to have a
Oh.
cab. I don't know which one. You can say prisoner, for instance. Like I'm not that specific enough yet in the wine world, but if you have some prisoner Cabernet, I do think it would work with this cigar.
I'm gonna go the same route as you. That was a good. I was thinking whiskeys that we've had on the show, but because of what happened with the hard truth, my fourth pairing, out of curiosity, I don't know if this is gonna be the best or not, would be just cognac.
I
I
was
would
gonna
like
say
to.
you're gonna yeah
Yeah, I like what would happen. I don't know. That's
yeah.
interesting.
Sometimes, and that's like guys, that's the whole thing with these ratings is sometimes you want the play, sometimes you want the mystery, sometimes you want it to gel and be beautiful and everything's elevated, and sometimes you just want an experiment and you want to notice
Mm-hmm.
like some people may be like, well, the hard truth, yeah, like that's good, but I wanted more just discovery and boom, mind blown, like, and you may have some more fun trying to get the nuances out of the other two pairings that we had today. So
Mm-hmm.
in the fourth pairing, we both picked exploratory pairings rather than what do I think is going to be even better than this hard truth. So
Right.
that's something. And if you guys aren't, I just wanted to make sure we mentioned this. If you guys aren't a part of the Perfect Pairing Club, make sure you join. You can use the code PPP10 at shopdreamercigars.com to get 10% off every single month. If you join the Perfect Pairing Club, there is now 3 tiers. Chris doesn't even know this yet.
I don't.
3 tiers. But if you get the main tier, then you get 4 to 5 cigars a month, and you get one cigar for every single week. That'll be the cigar of the week that we have on this podcast. And you get, let's see, when you join, you get 2 custom cigars with your initials and your last name on it. You get a free whiskey glass dram that we drink out of here that says member on it, has the wonderful Perfect Pairing Club logo. And then you get a bunch of bonuses. You get a Cigar 101 ebook that I wrote. You get a Whiskey 101 video tutorial that Chris did. You get a behind the scenes pairing explanation with my interview with Luciano Morales. You get behind the scenes of what it's like to be a master blender with Rick Rodriguez. And so just like the entire experience. And that's all for just $30 a month, less than $7 per cigar per year. And if you want to upgrade, in the highest tier, it's $50 a month for 8 to 10 cigars a month. You get 2 of each cigar of the week. So that one in a year, I mean, it comes out to about $5 per cigar. And these things are not. I mean, this Aladino Classic probably is somewhere around the lower end of what we typically do, and this is like $11 to $12. So you're already getting 2 of these for that price. Unfortunately, you did miss out on getting that for this month. If you did, we have 3 packs available again on shopdreamercigars.com. Just want to do a quick little plug. Make sure you guys can have the fun with us and join the Discord as well, where we're all talking about pairings. We're all talking about what we're having with the cigar of the week. Chris, that's all my plugs.
All right, man. That's good. We got to get better at plugging. We get lost
Yeah,
in the pairings, you know? It's
we
fine though,
do.
because that means they're good pairings. And I'm gonna go continue this hard truth pairing. Actually, this is fantastic.
Agreed. Cheers.
Cheers.